I know I said the aftermath was going to be on a Tuesday. It's come late. It's going to be on a Wednesday. I'll try my best. Some things just come up in your personal life and it delays time and all that. I am recording this now on a Tuesday night so I can get this straight for you guys on a Wednesday. Again, sorry for the late upload. Welcome back to the aftermath, the second episode, the third game of the season, because I didn't start this on the Bournemouth game. West Ham United have taken 7 points from 3 games, and when you looked at the start, you think, yeah, maybe we'll win against Bournemouth, and that's it. But we have beaten Brighton for the first time ever in the Premier League. It's not a trophy. I'm not celebrating like it's a trophy, but I actually said to my parents, if we beat Brighton, I'll run around Chadwell Heath. I still haven't done that. But yeah, we beat Chelsea last week and we beat Brighton. Both 3-1 wins. And aftermath, we just talk about the game in more detail, let's say. I give you my longer opinions rather than the short, quick match reactions that I do. Because I don't do live streams, but I'm not quite set up to do that yet. I haven't got the lighting. In goal for Brighton. Brighton lined up in a 4-2-3-1. They had Verbruggen making his debut in goal, James Milner at right back, Webster, Dunk, Estupinian, Pascal Gross and Gilmore in the pivot, Solly March and Matoma, with Welbeck and Ferguson playing up front. So one of them dropping deep occasionally, making it a 4-2-3-1, whatever. It says we played a 4-1-4-1 here, and sometimes it became a 5 with Alvarez dropping in the centre-backs, but yeah, it was a 4-1-4-1 most of the time. Areola, Soufal, Zuma, Bonner, Emerson, Alvarez in the deepest role, Bowen and Paquetá in wider areas, and then Souček and Ward-Prowse just behind Antonio, and Souček coming off early ended up being Ben Rama on the left and Paquetá in the middle. Let's go through performances, and there was a big debate about man of the match. But the two people that have done it twice in a row that have been contenders for man of the match is Areola and Antonio. And it pissed me off at the start of the season that people were sticking up for Aaron Cresswell for missing training and him being a good servant, but said Antonio's head's gone because he wanted to move even though he was scoring again, even though he was still training. He doesn't throw his toys out the pram ever. And I don't know. I don't think he gets enough respect, despite him being our biggest, our all-time top goal scorer. But Antonio, again, what a performance! That goal, that's probably one of the most satisfying goals I've seen him score. Another goal he scored against Brighton a couple of years ago, probably his best goal for West Ham, and then the goal against Chelsea, and then the goal against Leicester where he spins a defender. He has a few. That the Tottenham away one the first one at their stadium. There's quite a few goals that Antonio scored that you're just like, it's fucking brilliant. And we gave Adam Webster a hard time, and I want to know what has happened to Adam Webster, because especially under Graham Potter, this guy was really fucking good. Even Chelsea were considering him at one point. And I thought Adam Webster could be on the fringes of the English squad. I thought him and Dunk were a very good partnership, and Webster got dragged out into wide areas a lot, and he couldn't handle Mikel Antonio. And that's what Mikel Antonio does the best. He spins defenders. People always talk about his control and stuff like that, but he'll give you something better in terms of the way his physicality works. And no defenders, when they go into him, they can't handle him. And he had a chance to put it forward, Prowse, and took too long because he didn't want to put it on his left foot. And I was like, just fucking pass to Ward-Prowse, he's right there. And then pretty much another chance happened where, he ran down the line and he ended up putting Ward-Prowse through, and eventually it goes in. Obviously, Paquetá put Antonio through, and he got the shot on target in the end earlier before that goal. And overall, Antonio did superb. And it was just class. It was just class. And you could tell it was in their minds throughout most of these players that Brighton away was important, and it was important to end the streak. Excuse me. And I think it was in the manager's mind. I think it was in Jared Bowen's mind, and such and so and so. With Areola in goal, I think he didn't really have much to do in the first half. A couple ones that he just had to catch. But from the whole of the second half, he pretty much had to do a lot. He had to do so much. He had to save a lot. Two from Evan Ferguson. The second one, I think it was the shot that Evan Ferguson took. That he was brilliant save. It was a brilliant save, and like a certain West Ham account that lost to run agendas and pretend to be an ITK was saying that Areola's good at nothing, and I think that sums up Twitter. That's a very Twitter opinion that sums up people on Twitter quite a bit, and I know Lucas Fabianski was angry that he was named as a number two in the way it was said to him, and you can understand why he would be angry. But Areola is the future. Areola is the future. And I say future. He's 30, but he's a goalkeeper. He's got a few years left, and we've seen that today. The guy's a European experienced man, and he's actually done really well for us. I've never gotten the stigma against Areola. I know he's made occasional mistakes, and people got pre-season games. The only one I'll say off the top of my head where it was a major mistake was Alkmaar at home. He should have saved that one. But people like to ignore, Fabianski's performances against Arsenal away and Newcastle at home last season. People don't like to talk about that for some reason. They don't want to blame Fabianski because it's always someone else's fault. But that's a conversation for another day. Areola, again, though, like with two performances in a row where he's pretty much stolen man of the match. And I don't think I gave him man of the match for Chelsea. I don't actually remember. Let me know if I did. But he probably has to be man of the match again. Like, looking back at it, he probably has to be man of the match twice in a row. Even though, I think, I said Fornals. I said Fornals for Chelsea, even though he's a sub, and I had my explanations for that. The fullbacks as well, I don't think Emerson did much wrong. I was worried for Emerson coming up against Sonny March, who has been majorly improved under De Zerbi. And I think the way De Zerbi sets up probably better suits March rather than how Graham Potter sets up. And I was a bit worried for Emerson, but at the same time, Sonny March isn't someone that bursts you down with pace. He can take you on there, and he's got a beautiful strike on him. And Emerson held his own. I think probably a couple shaky moments. He was better than he was against Chelsea. Against Chelsea, he was getting ripped apart by Raheem Sterling. But Emerson is very good at giving you something on the counter attack because of the way he drives with the ball, and he can play in possession quite well. And I think with Vladimir Sufel, in the second half, he locked up Matoma. But also, he couldn't put a pass together in the first half because he's a very long ball kind of guy, and I think that's an instruction, but just gets rid of the ball as much as possible. And I think it's clearly an instruction because we've got Antonio in there, just knocking down the channels. Antonio's there. And the thing is, because we were playing a narrow four at the back, two men are hugging the touchline for Brighton, whether it's their fullbacks or their wingers. They were looking for the switch ball all the time to get into Matoma because of how good he is 1v1. And I think first half Matoma definitely got the best of Vladimir Sufel. But listen, I just think that what's it called? I think Sufel did very well in 1v1 against Matoma in the second half, and I think he held his own in the end. I think the penalty situation, Brighton got done over by that because as much as it's not a penalty in my opinion, we got a penalty against Bournemouth last year because of Jordan Zamura's handball, and they also got done in with Lewis Dunk having the same thing against Luton. So the referee did really poor on that. I don't think it was a penalty for Paquetá against Matoma against Estupinian because I think it's a normal shoulder-to-shoulder barge, but I wouldn't have been surprised if that was given. I don't think Paquetá needed to make the barge though. I think he could have seen that out, but sometimes this guy just gives major head loss. I think Kurt Zuma could have been a contender for man of the match as well because the thing is with Kurt Zuma, um, I think he just headed everything out, and there was a couple moments of like there was like one moment where I was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" But that was it. It was only one moment. He headed everything out. It's because we're making Brighton become predictable. And they were just crossing it in. We stood in our shape very well. The manager got it spot on, and we were very compact. And we were just like, come and break us down, and it worked. Zuma headed everything out. Another good game from Kurt Zuma, and it was a majorly improved performance from the Chelsea game. Because I didn't think that was his best game at all. In fact, I thought it was one of his worst games for West Ham. Because I think Jackson was getting at him and again a lot. And Ogbonna and Zuma play well when playing in a low block kind of thing. When we're playing very defensive, that you don't really get past them. Angelo Ogbonna can read the game quite well. It's just if you're going man to man, especially, and Ogbonna's there, he'll end up just pulling the striker's shirt. And I think that's probably his major weakness, and especially his pace. He's lost his pace over the years, and he's getting on a bit. Now the major thing was the midfield because the midfield originally was Souček, Ward-Prowse, and Alvarez, and I don't want Moyes to go with that in the future, but it could have worked. It probably would have worked still in even if Souček didn't get taken off. And he won't. I don't think he'll make it for the Luton game apparently. But Ward-Prowse and Alvarez are looking like a good partnership so far, and what's it called? Yeah, but I wouldn't go too far with it. I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it worked so well. Instantly, we're 2 games in with that partnership, and we're 3 games in general. I'm not gonna get carried away, but I think Edson Alvarez, you can see he was exhausted at the end. He was probably at fault for the goal, but he was really tired at the end, and he wasn't expected to play 90 minutes straight away because of his lack of pre-season and stuff like that. And he filled in really well. James Ward-Prowse, you can tell that this guy will fit in straight away, and I expect instant results from James Ward-Prowse because he's a Premier League player. This guy's been in the Premier League. Same way I expected instant result with Ings, Zuma, and Emerson. The reason why I haven't criticised Ings much is because I don't criticise West Ham strikers much because we never give strikers any service. But unless you're blatantly shit like an Ajeti, I'm not gonna really go at you much. But here's the thing. Jared Bowen as well. Like we got a bit of the pace back in our side, and I think if you go to all 3 goals, and we're pretty much hitting them all in transition each time, and maybe apart from the third goal. The third goal was actually probably underrated because Ariola's knocked it to the channel, and is actually, if that was Fabianski, that would have been kicked off. And I don't mean to go at Fabianski again because Fabianski's been an amazing keeper for West Ham, but I'm just saying the difference of kicking because Fabianski can't kick a ball. Ariola just knocked into Jared Bowen, and the fact is that we shouldn't have been allowed that much space in the first place. They should have closed us down, but Bowen into Antonio, and Antonio turns him, shoots. Great goal from Antonio, and I think we really nullified, especially in defence as well, with our shape, making Evan Ferguson and Danny Welbeck perform really awfully. And I think that was mainly because of us. Because it could have been a 2v2 situation with their strikers against our centre-backs. But Alvarez was there when we forced one of the strikers to come deep. He was there sweeping up. And he's composed Alvarez coming with the ball because he was at Ajax. And Ajax have different standards when it comes to being good on the ball. He's not a Frankie de Jong. He even said that himself. Ajax fans would think he is quite shit on the ball because they're used to a Frankie de Jong. I'm not used to midfielders necessarily being good on the ball at West Ham. I don't think we've had bad midfielders on the ball at West Ham necessarily either, but what he has is what, like, the Declan Rice, I don't want to mention Declan Rice all the time because I'm not Sky Sports, but if you look at when Declan Rice was at West Ham, he can, physicality, comes out with the ball, composed in the box, but he had a different style of it. He would just shimmy past it with the ball because he could drive with the ball. Edson Alvarez, you saw he just quick feet away, and it was a different style of coming out with the ball out your box, and we don't play that way all the time necessarily. Where we have to like pass it out the back and stuff. We actually have the players to pass out in front and back now due to our signings. If you take Suchek out and players like that and Sufa, now we probably don't have the right back for it, and etc. We're probably not even going to play that football. I'm not expecting, David Moyes and West Ham to anyway. But Alvarez was the Declan Rice replacement, not James Ward-Prowse. And the people that thought James Ward-Prowse was the Declan Rice replacement, you've completely misconstrued what James Ward-Prowse will bring. James Ward-Prowse is a typical box-to-box midfielder. You saw that. He can put a tackle in. He can score goals. And as I've mentioned this a couple of times on the channel, if you watch his partnership with Oriol Romeo at Southampton, you would understand his role. Like he's not just a defensive midfielder. He could probably fill in. He did fill in that role against Chelsea. He was deeper, and Suchek was going forward. That's because Alvarez wasn't fit, and obviously clearly Moyes wants to play every fucking midfielder in the squad in the starting lineup. Speaking of David Moyes, he got it spot on. And he tweaked it a bit, because I remember last year when we got beat 4-0 here. Because Brighton, I think someone mentioned this on Match of the Day, Brighton want you to press, they'll try and draw you into press. We went, as in like, last year, it's like, we might go a little bit forward, and then they would just pick holes around us and kill us. And that's how they pretty much scored most of their goals, and we didn't close them down enough. Maybe it was, I don't know whether it was a lack of energy, but that was probably one of the worst performances you'll see from a West Ham team in general. And I think it was different this year because we were actually sitting deep quite well. We didn't put pressure on their defenders, and I think they approached it differently because they usually have a box midfield. It didn't feel like a box midfield this time, but it just felt a little bit different the way they set up. But I think we sat back really well, and as much as sitting back football cannot be sustainable all the time, if you can sit back like that, I'm happy with it. You can be hard to beat like that. I was happy at the end with the way we set up, and I was very nervous going into the game. And as you saw from my Brighton and Hove Albion preview, I thought we had no chance coming up against Robert De Zebra. And De Zebra was a bit salty in his press conference talking about when they sit 20 metres in their goal or whatever, stuff like that. No one cares, De Zebra. Just figure out a way to break down a low block. But Moyes has done well to start off, and let's hope we beat Luton and we have 10 points from 4 games. That's not bad at all. Get to 40 points as quick as possible, please, because I want the standards to be let's go back and try and get Europe again, and try and win the Europa League, etc. And I don't want another relegation battle. I'm not going to get carried away with this whole thing either. I'm not going to change my mind again about David Moyes until I see something. I need to see I need to see it convincingly week in, week out. I need to see this if we can keep this up with Europe, and there isn't an excuse because of the transfer window. There's no excuse to not do well this season, in my opinion, because other teams are spending. You should be spending as well. And if we hear excuses in the future about like we haven't got enough players, well, that's your own fault. That's your own fault. I think it's been a good window in general so far, but it's just too late. And I know we're looking for this Yuri Alberto guy from Corinthians. I know nothing about this dude, but he's a striker, and hopefully he actually suits what Moyes wants to do. If we get over the line, because apparently personal terms are agreed. It's going to be a busy few days coming up to deadline day and the Luton game and stuff like that. So I won't have a video for you Saturday about deadline day because I'm very busy on Saturday. I will have the Luton match reaction. That'll probably be my next video, and we'll talk about deadline day probably next week, probably 7 days from now if I'm honest. But that'll be the end of the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Social medias are in the description if you want to follow me. The email for the inquiries. Thank you for watching the aftermath. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.